Hi everyone, welcome. I was thinking about reverbs and how it'd be nice to talk about how using reverb can bring out the most depth and awesomeness within your sounds, creating the right environments. But most specifically, I wanted to talk about multiple reverb use by using not just one reverb unit or plugin, to put on a guitar or a vocal or a drum or whatever, but using a bunch of different reverbs to create an overall unique combination of sounds where you'll get a much richer, more layers of depth in your reverb selection. What I would do for years, and what I still do actually, if you talk about an SSL console or a Neve, whatever you're mixing on an SSL, there were 4 mono sends on each channel, and there was a stereo channel at the very top. And a lot of times, send 1 would be a room, send 2 would be some sort of a plate or a hall, send 3 would be a delayed, shorter, like a back wall thing I would set up, and send 4 a lot of times would be a nonlinear reverb. Say like a gated reverb, like an AMS nonlinear reverb or something like that. So I would have 4 different sends to play with on any specific channel. Plus at the very top, I would do something like put some sort of harmonizer on an AMS 1580S or a harmonizer, an H3000 or a 949 or a 910. Or sometimes I would even use that for more reverbs, and I would have the left pan would go to one reverb, or the right side of the pan, if I turned up that send and was panned to the right, it would go to a different reverb, or the same reverb, but I would put one side going into a delay into that same verb. So if I panned left, it would be a straight send to the reverb, whatever that might have been. And if I panned right, it'd be a delayed with a pre-delay going to that reverb. In the box, mixing in Pro Tools, what I do is I have a wide array of reverbs, which is a really tight room, and then another room that's a little bit bigger. Say on one I'll have an Ursa Major space station, and I'll use, I think it's the comb or number 2, whatever that is, for a really reflective early reflection, so that if you hit a tap, it would go. It would be like that, and I could turn up the reverb or the feedback on that to make it decay a little more. Okay, the next one might be a room, like I would use, let's say, an Eventide 2016. I would use that as another room. Then I would have a plate, an EMT 140 plate. I'd have another plate, or I do have another plate for a mono EMT. I'll have a medium hall, which I can make small hall or large hall for a more expansive sound. I'll also have another send to spring reverbs. I love spring reverbs, so a lot of times I will have either one stereo reverb, or more often than that, actually, I will have 2 different types of spring reverbs, one with a different decay, one with a slightly different character, and I can use that send to send to 2 of those, or 2 different sends to send to one if I want to have it mainly go to one side or half one side. Then I'll have a non-lin, I'll have that back wall thing that I'm talking about. Now here's the thing, let's say for a snare drum. On a snare drum, some people are always looking for, I finally found the greatest reverb for my snare drum, and it's this, or it's an EMT 250, or it's a PCM 60, or a PCM 70, or whatever it is that they want to use for their snare drum. How I use my reverbs is I will put a little bit of a room on there, or I'll put a little bit of a room and a non-linear on a snare drum, or a non-linear and the room and also a hall, or that back hall, which is like a buff, and I'll filter the bottom end off of that and make it a shorter, there's no low end information on that below, let's say 150 cycles or something, just to give it like it was ricocheting off a back wall. By using different amounts of different reverbs, whether it's a snare drum or on a lead vocal or guitars, I can end up with a much better and richer sound for that instrument. And I can control how much early reflection I have versus how much middle ground reflection I have versus how much of the back wall and a more expansive hall or spring thing I have, how boingy I want the spring, whatever. So to simplify, you can actually think about it as in terms of the length of time. So a small room is going to be a very short decay time. The next one up, say the next room up, is going to be a different character of room, but it's going to be more of an ambient sort of room sound, like a short studio sort of wood room or something. The next one will be an EMT if I use that. The next one will be a back wall or a nonlinear or some sort of really expansive, huge, long reverb sound, okay? What that's going to do is it's going to allow me to shape the overall envelope of what that sound is going to be. So let's say I have a guitar going chink, 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 chink. Okay, a little chinky kind of scratchy guitar backbeat thing, right? Well, let's say I want to have a certain amount of a tight sound within a room. Let's say kind of a grungy basement sound or something. I'll use probably something more like an Ursa Major, and I'll get that tuned in so it's like a guitar in a room. And then I might add a back wall ricochet sound just to give it the length without the sloppiness or the density of an EMT 140, right? So now I can kind of tailor how I would like the sound, the reverb of that guitar to travel in time, right? So I can use the tight room, I can use a non-linear, let's say with a longer decay time, and then I can also add that back wall. When you do that stuff on things like pianos and guitars and snare drums, especially vocals too, vocals are amazing. Instead of finding the perfect plug-in sound for your reverb on your lead vocal, by using 2 to 3 to 4 different reverbs on your lead vocal, you can end up with such a unique and individual sound on your lead vocal, especially if you automate the overall reverbs to change the amount of reverb and also the tonality of a reverb. Let's say a lot of times what I'll do is I'll have the reverb sent off of 1 or 2 faders on the lead vocal so that I can automate what it is I want the lead vocal to do. So in the verse, I may just have a tiny bit of room. I won't even talk about chorusing and stuff in the video, but I'll have some chorusing, some distorted chorusing, some little tight slap left and right. But for the reverbs, I can have a fader just turn up the sends on that fader. So if it's a mid-tempo sort of pop song, I can just say, well, I just bring it up and just add right on that fader how much of that middle size verb I want and tight verb I want and a more expansive hall I want. And now I can control on that fader in the verse or in the B section in the chorus how loud and how soft, or even on certain lines within a certain section, I can just control that to create emotion within the lead vocal track. And it really allows for so much interest and so much emotion to flow in a song because it's constantly changing. It just sounds great, and it sounds just more and more emotional. That's really the word there. It's more emotional, it's more interesting, it's more exciting, and it's like a great screenplay unfolding. You don't know what's going to happen next, and it keeps the listener's attention tuned in, okay? A lot of times what I will do is just like on an SSL console having 4 or 5 reverb sends. These days I'm using about 10 different reverbs. I have the rooms, I have the EMTs, I have the springs, I have the back wall, I have the non-lin, I have a balcony thing, I have a really long reverb for things, and all those will be available on anything globally that I want to use through my entire session. So whatever instrument I want to throw in there, I can just add that or add a bunch of different ones to whatever that instrument is. On vocals, I tend to use more specific effects that are mainly going to be used for the lead vocal, like the chorusing and the reverbs and the delays. Or a lot of times I'll have a bunch of delays. I mean, I have like 10 delays on most of the mixes that I do. And there'll be different types of delays, different regeneration, different filtering type stuff. If it's a cleaner delay, if it's a bucket style delay, I will use those to send off of a vocal, for example, and I will use the return of that delay to send into different reverbs. And a lot of those delay returns are actually going to 3 or 4 reverbs. A lot of times, because of that delay, it would make a vocal sound really upfront and expansive and far away at the same time. I mean, when I say at the same time, the longer delays are going to be later in time a little bit. But most of the pre-delays on stuff like rooms will be anywhere from 10 milliseconds, 15 milliseconds to my, let's say a medium hall will be 40 millisecond pre-delay, 60 millisecond, 80 millisecond. I've had EMTs be as late and delayed as 100 milliseconds all the way up to 250 millisecond delay. Okay, so if you're going to do something like that, let's say you want to put a really long delay on a vocal with a huge pre-delay, well, you can now, if you choose to, fill in that early time with early reflections or some nonlinear reverb or a little bit of medium hall, and then you can add that final little far away delayed reverb to the vocal, and it just gives this depth of field and allows just the vocal to sound rich and captivating. It really is a captivating sound when you can change all that up. So that's with all the sends across everything, and I can use them on any instrument, anywhere that I want. Sometimes what I will do, because I use my Pro Tools initial audio tracks as just a multi-track source and send those to destination auxes. All my destination auxes are in stereo. So let's say I have a guitar, a really cool little rhythmic thing or a sparse kind of thing. What I can do is I can use specific plugins tailored just to that guitar alone, right across an insert point. So let's say I want to use something, let's say I want the guitar to be half left, okay? I might want to have, let's say, a deverb on a medium room or some kind of bigger plate sound on that guitar, but I want it to image right on top of that guitar. And if I choose to, I can have it be mono, exactly pinpointed on top of it, or I can splay out those pan pot pointers and make, instead of like this, they'll be more like this, but in the left direction, right? So now I don't have to cloud up the middle of the mix or take up room on the far left or far right, and I can turn up as much reverb. I can just use the blend right on the insert and get the guitar sound that I want in its own environment, so to speak. Because it's all a cartoon. You can do whatever you want. You can have the drums bone dry. You can have the guitars really wet. You can have the delay going through some kind of ping pong, percolating little tighter like that, and use that as your reverb. It's really cool when you use different environments for different instruments. And somehow you'll find through your mixing, you'll find a way that makes it just cohesive enough as if they share the same environment that works, but also unique enough and individual enough to bring excitement to the record itself. Also, you can have, let's say you want to send percussions and tambourines to your reverbs or whatever. A lot of times, although I'm filtering the top end of my reverbs, let's say for my vocal verbs, I'll filter the bottom end, a bit 150 cycles, 200 cycles. I'll tailor off the top end depending on what I'm going for, down to 8K at the top end down, maybe down to 5K or even 3K, just to warm that up. So it's not competing, the higher end frequencies, the top end of the reverb isn't competing with the lead vocal sound itself, and gives more separation and more depth and a more upfront sound. What you can do on reverbs, on your general reverbs for your guitars and pianos, let's say you don't want to tailor the top end as much, you can put de-essers right across those returns of your reverbs before it hits the reverb. You could do it after, but before the reverb plugin, so that it'll just dip down on split mode. Let's say you want to split it anywhere from like 3 or 4K and up, and you want that to dip down. So anytime a percussion thing hits or something sharp hits it, it's not going to go into the reverb and sound cheap or boingy or fake or whatever. You can do the same thing with like drum rooms. A lot of times I won't send as often from the near mics on a drum kit. What I'll do is I'll send off the ambience a lot of times, which can make things sound a lot more believable, a lot richer, a lot warmer, and just not have that. It won't bring up all the fake and boingy artifacts that things like, reverbs can really bring up. So that's it. I just wanted to talk about how using different reverbs across the same instrument, across the same channel, in different amounts, whatever you want to do, can really add a lot of depth and emotion to your sounds. You can EQ them different. You can do them all kinds of different ways. Like I'll sometimes have reverb on a bass drum, on the front head of a bass drum, but I'll be filtering all the top end off that reverb, and I will be boosting the bottom end, or I'll have more of a long decay time. Like let's say on my medium hall, I really like the 480 reverbs. I will use that, but I will have more on the bottom end ringing out than I will on the top end, or on the toms, I'll do the same thing. You can do whatever you want. So have fun with the environments on your channels. Use a bunch of reverbs all at the same time. You don't have to pick the best reverb in the world, because you'll end up with something better when you use 3 or 4 reverbs. Have fun. Thanks for being here. And if you really enjoyed this video and it resonated with you, please consider subscribing to the channel. Give it a like. It helps out the channel a lot. And until the next time, cheers, everybody.